Hi friends, welcome to Harmony Hills Home and Garden. I'm Jenny and we live and garden here in Baltimore, Maryland, Zone 7. Today's project is to revamp this section of the garden here. We have some deer damage, we have some plants that aren't thriving here because they don't get enough light, and other things that need to be rearranged and replanted, and so that's my project for the morning. So come with me and let's get this area of the garden redone. You may have seen in my previous videos recently that I've been talking about these hostas down here. I have 1, 2, 3, and then a fourth one across the pathway. Halcyon hostas, which are a lovely blue-green leaf, really thick leaves, and just a really beautiful hosta in the garden. And I thought that my spraying for deer would keep the deer off of these. However, as you can see, the deer have absolutely decimated all 4 of these Halcyon hostas here. And nothing I can do to spray them is keeping the deer away. So I just have to finally admit that these hostas need to go inside the fence. So I'm going to be digging out these Halcyon hostas and transplanting them to another part of our garden. And then in its place, I'm going to be putting in some brunnera and some pulmonary and some ajuga to try to fill in this space. I'll show you those plants here in a little bit. Also in here I have a purple coneflower or 2. I think there's 2 plants. There's one here and one back here that I love the plants. There's nothing wrong with the plants. They just don't get enough sun. The sun that we're getting right now is dappled sun, and it's only in the morning for about an hour. And you can see how dappled it is. Not every plant gets sun on their leaves for any amount of time at all. So this coneflower just isn't getting enough sun to really thrive here. You can see these 2 plants, they are blooming. So they're valiantly trying to live in the space that I've given them. But they're just not thriving, and so I want to move them out. Oh, actually, here's a third. Is that the same one? There's a third coneflower. This one doesn't have any leaves on it. Also down here, I have some dianthus. This is, let's see, which one is this? American pie, key lime pie dianthus. There's 2 plants here, and they're just suffering. They just have the very minimum amount of leaves on them. Here I have a variegated iris, and 1 is planted too deeply, and 2, it doesn't get enough sun. So I need to move that out and try to find a place where it can thrive better also. Now this euphorbia is called glacier blue euphorbia, and actually it's doing okay in this spot. I'm not going to move it. I like it here. I have lamb's ear back here, and then over here is where I've planted some storm cloud amsonia. That's going to stay, and everything from roughly here forward is all going to stay. But this is the area that I'm mostly concerned with right here. And then on this side, I have these iris, which you can see are totally bedraggled right now. They're planted too deep. They've been overtaken by perennial vinca minor, periwinkle. And then there's that one more Halcyon hosta. So that hosta is going to come out, and I'm going to dig up these irises and separate them and replant them in a location that they'll get better sun, they won't be planted as deeply, and they'll just thrive better. In this location over here, I don't have any plans to replant anything at all. I'm just going to let the vinca be here as a nice solid green ground cover that flowers purple in the spring. Back over toward the gate, which is off camera right now, I do have some hellebores growing, and they're going to stay there. I also have a hosta, and I'll probably move it as well, because hostas outside the gate in my garden are just a salad bar for deer. So the first thing I'm going to do is get the plants taken out of the ground, separate, get any weeds out of the root balls that may be there. I'll put them onto a tarp and put a little bit of water on them to keep them healthy. The temperatures outside today are going to be going up near 100, but right now we're in the mid-70s, going quickly up into the 80s and 90s. All right, so I'll pull those out, and then I'm going to enrich the soil. The soil here, We've been working on it since we moved into the garden about 7 years ago. Well, I suppose we moved into the house, didn't we? About 7 years ago. So the soil here isn't as terrible as it is in other places, but still it could use some more organic matter. So I'm going to be adding in some compost. This is the same pile of compost that we had delivered in April, and there's about a cubic yard of it still on the driveway back there. So I'm just using that here and there as I need organic matter for my soil. So that'll be going on here. And then I'll be planting the plants. And if I need to, I will cover up with some fresh mulch, which we also still have on our driveway from the big bulk delivery that we had in April. So that's it. So let's get to it. Now this hosta, I can see in its root ball that it has already grown and has 1, 2, 3 centers. So I could use this opportunity to split this plant into 3 smaller ones, and that's a great way to spread more of the Halcyon love around the garden. So I probably will divide this one up since it has already grown. Oh goodness. I thought this soil was better than it's turning out to be. I don't know if you can see, here is a separate plant, here is a separate plant, and here I might be able to get 4 out of this hosta, but you can definitely see this one coming off as a shoot by itself. This is called a zebra iris, and you can see how spindly and thin it is. It's because the rhizomes are planted way too deep, and it just doesn't get the sun it needs over here. You're not supposed to cover up the rhizome with soil, so when I replant this, I'll bring the soil level right up here and let this show, and that's what makes an iris bloom better. Like this is all just one dianthus plant here. Oh, look at this. This is the service berry that I got from Baltimore City 4 or 5 years ago, and a stake that it's on. Look how few roots it has developed in that time. I think I'm going to make the hard decision to just take this out and stop trying to baby it along. It's not thriving here. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll offer this up for free for someone who may want it. Pot it up and put it on the curb and put it on Facebook Marketplace or something. Okay, so I got all the plants out. I'm going to put them into this tarp and water them. And now that I see how dry this area is, I'm also going to water in here. Because we're in a heat spell right now, I don't have drip irrigation over on this section of this garden. I will be adding it. So because we're in the heat spell, I want to give these plants that I'm going to be putting in here the best chance at surviving this heat that we're going to be having. So the stepping stones, when they were laid, of course, they were not covered by any ground cover or soil. And over the years, things have grown, especially this viburnum has grown. So we ended up walking off of the stones. So I need to reclaim the stepping path from the plants. And this iris is growing actually on top of this stone. It's crazy. There we go. They look like little lobsters to me. So we'll divide those up later, but for now I just want to get them out. Reclaim these stepping stones from the vinca. I was going to try to save the leaves, but they're just breaking off, so I'm just going to deal with it. This is not the best time of year to be digging and dividing irises, but it is what it is, right? Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. Look at this. It's awesome. That's going to make so many beautiful plants. I'm going to be able to give some away maybe. So you can see I've uncovered these stepping stones and freed them from the ground covers that were overtaking them. Also, over the years, of course, as we mulched, some of the edges of the stones were lost. And I do like the soft edges of the stones. I just don't want them to be half buried like these were. So as I continue on this project, I'm going to keep in mind to try to keep the stepping stones available for use. This is now full of plants and water, so it's going to be heavy. I'm going to see if I can slide it over, get it out of the way. Get these irises moved. So many of them. Oh, it's going to be so nice to have all these available. I don't know yet where they're going to go. Find a spot though. Try to clean as I go on this project so that I don't get to the end and have all this cleaning to do when I'm so tired from doing the job. See, smart thinking. And yeah, that's what I'm calling cleaning as I go. Here's some more coneflower. All right, now I got some random weeds popping up in here. Got vinca and violets and English ivy. Lots of things that I don't really want. So try to weed a little bit here. I'm not going to get it all, but at least maybe a little bit of it. In case anyone thinks I'm a glamorous gardener. Not glamorous. Okay, let me get my plants. My plant selection for this area includes 3 pulmonaria. They're all different. 2 brunnera and 2 ajuga. The first one is called Spot On. This one's from Proven Winners. This one's part shade to full shade. It grows 14 to 16 inches tall. Let's see. You're supposed to space them 18 inches apart. It's hardy in zones 3 through 9 and blooms in late spring. I think most pulmonarias bloom in late spring. This next one here is called Raspberry Splash. This one is hardy in zones 3 through 9 and it grows 12 inches tall, 12 to 18 inches wide. The last one I have here is called Opal. This one is hardy in zones 5 through 8. So I don't know why this one is so much less hardy than the other two, but anyway, we're here in zone 7, so it should work. 5 through 8. This one grows 12 to 14 inches tall and wants to be 24 inches apart. So I'm going to plant these near each other, but interspersed with these other things. This brunnera is Jack Frost. It grows 15 inches tall and 18 inches wide. I have 2 of those. And then this is a Juga black scallop. It's only 4 to 6 inches wide, and it spreads about 12 inches or farther. And it's hardy in zones 4 through 11. Jack Frost is hardy in zones 4 through 9. So these are the plants I'm going to be putting into this triangle area right here. But first, I think actually I'm going to put some compost on here and kind of turn it into the soil so that I have some additional organic matter on this soil. This compost is made up of mushroom compost and leaf mold, basically. It's a product called Leaf Grow that's manufactured by composting leaves here in Maryland. I think in Prince George's County, I think, and maybe another county or two. Anyway, Leaf Grow is a great thing. It's a product. It's basically just leaf mold, though, composted leaves. I have quite a slope from the top of the soil down to the stones, and after I put mulch on here, the mulch will kind of hold everything in because it kind of knits itself together. But I don't think I want to plant on this slope. I want to keep that slope free and gradual. So then we're going to do the 3 pulmonaria in a triangle here, and then the 2 brunneras kind of here underneath this baptisia, kind of back here. I was thinking about spreading these, putting one of these out there, but I think I want to keep them in kind of a mass together like that. So I think that's going to be my plan. Looking at it, I don't think I'm going to put this ajuga in here. I'll use it somewhere else in the garden because, 1, I think the dark color of it is too dark for this shady area, and 2, I just think it'll look cleaner and nicer without it. So I think this is going to be my locations. Now for each of these holes, I'm going to dig a hole, same depth as the root ball, and big enough to fit the root ball in there, maybe 1.5 to 2 times as wide. And then I'm going to put in some biotone starter fertilizer, and then I'm going to plant the pot, not the pot, but the plant root ball, backfill. A very generic planting process. You can see the clay soil down in here that we've been working with on this garden forever. And that's why I put in lots of organic matter. All right, and biotone. This one is the spot on for improving winters. Ooh, that's a dry root ball. I'm going to water that right now before I put the soil around it. Should have watered it before I got this far. Now it's a little sloppy in here, but that's okay. Pull that up like that. Backfill the soil. Put the tag in so I remember which is which. Now this hole might be a little bit more difficult to dig because it's nearest where all the pathways are. And the guys who put in my paths, they did an excellent job, but they did use a machine to tamp down the crush and run gravel underneath it, and so forth. So this little point here is usually more difficult to work in. All right, I think these 3 pulmonaria are looking good. They're not exactly the same as each other. That's okay. This one has big spots, medium spots, small creamier spots. These are whiter and creamier over here. So slightly different looks from each other. Now, let's get this brunnera in here. Okay, so I was pretty hot and sweaty after I finished planting those. So I took some time to cool off, get a drink of water, watch a little bit of YouTube gardening channels, and now I'm back at it. It's time now. I'm gonna run some drip irrigation. My supply line for this area is not this one that you see there. That's the container line for that urn. The supply line for this area is a supply that goes kind of pretty far away over there. So I'm gonna, I don't have any of the connections that I need to make 1/2-inch tubing connections right now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna punch into that 1/2-inch supply line with some 1/4-inch drip line. Now, 1/4-inch drip, you don't want to run it any more than 30 feet, and if you can stay under 20 feet, that's better, because the water pressure is just too, the tubing is too narrow to really serve a lot of emitters if you run it for very long. So I'm going to try to limit the number of emitters that I have on it to just where the plants are over here. And then I'll use 1/4-inch supply to get to and from that 1/2-inch supply line. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to make a big U shape, come off the supply line, come down near the plants, and then around the plants, and then back up to the supply line. I'm going to do all that with 1/4-inch drip. This is 1/4-inch supply line. There are no emitters on this, so I'm going to run this off of this supply 1/2-inch supply line, run it over near my new plants, and then I'm going to switch over to the emitter style tubing, run some emitter tubing near my new plants, and then use this again to come back to the supply line to make a closed loop. So I have my hole punch, I have my scissors, and I have my tube. I've already got a straight connector on here. So I'm just going to punch a hole here. And put in this supply tubing with the emitter already on it. All right, now I'm going to run this supply tube down to over here. Oops, I've got a knot in it. How did I do that? Run this down over here, and I'm going to stop it about right here. Now this tubing is 1/4-inch emitter tubing that has 1/2 gallon per hour emitters every 6 inches. I'm going to use a straight coupler to connect this emitter tubing to this supply. And I'm going to run this supply line right next to all my plants. I'm out of landscape staples right now, so I'm just going to bury it like that. And now I'm going to use another straight connector to connect back onto the black supply. Now I could just end this here and let it be a dead end, but I like it going back to the supply line because I feel like the water circulates better that way in a loop. Just trim this off. Put my connector, straight coupler. Should have my gloves on, then it wouldn't be so slippery. All right, and now I'll just punch another hole in this supply line and pop this end in, and we'll be done. And now I have drip irrigation running next to my new plants. And I'm going to now bury it under my mulch so it'll stay in place since I'm out of staples at the moment. Got myself some hardwood mulch here. This is leftover from the spring. Well, friends, I love the way this garden turned out. I think it looks cleaner. I think it looks neater. I think the plants will have more of a chance to thrive here. The things that I've planted in here are better suited to this environment. Let me show you around. Here we are. This is where the Halcyon Hostas used to be, and there were coneflowers back in there. There was an iris here, and then over here there was a Halcyon Hosta here and a bunch of irises back in there. And now, look, we can see the stepping stones. They're cleaned off and ready to use. I've pruned up the viburnum here so that when you walk on the stepping stones, you don't brush up against the tree anymore, or shrub. And I've remulched everything. I've laid drip onto these so that now they're going to be well watered every time the front garden, north side of the front garden, gets watered. These will be watered, and I love it. I'm just really pleased. I think it's going to be good plants for this location, and the deer will leave them alone because deer don't eat pulmonary or brunnera. And so, yeah, I also like the way the colors kind of all still blend into this plan. This Baptisia is a blue-green, grayish kind of a leaf color, and this is the basis for this entire bed, going silver, grayish, greenish leaves. And so this is a really nice choice here. I don't mind at all that the pulmonaria are 3 different ones. They're just barely different from each other, but I think it gives kind of interest to the planting. I like the texture of the brunnera next to the different pulmonarias and also next to this euphorbia. I think it's going to be really nice. The lambs here are looking a little bit bedraggled right now, but I'll trim them up and they'll flush back out, and they'll be a soft, fuzzy gray-green leaf. Compared to these, it'll be a similar color. And then as you move forward into the bed, we start moving into a different style of leaves and stuff here. But this is the soft cloud, storm cloud, Amsonia, underplanted with the lamb's ear, and then there's other things up in the front, but I consider that a different section. So this is just a little teeny tiny section of the garden here, but I'm really pleased with the way it looks now. And there are all the plants I dug up. They all are waiting in that bin. They have water on their roots, and they're just waiting for me to put them into the ground somewhere. Over on this side, I have 2 hellebores and 1 hosta. The hosta I'll probably dig out at some point, but it is a really common, I forget the name of it, but just the really common wavy-leafed green and white striped hosta that are all over the place in our area here. So I'll move that one inside the fence at some point, but I think the hellebores here, I'm going to be adding to my hellebore collection in this area, and I might bring some hellebores over into this area. I might not, I don't know. But I'm pretty pleased with the way this area of the garden is coming out. We are looking at it toward the gate. Now this garden over here, this little teeny tiny island, it has, let's see, that is, what is that? That's a euonymus emerald spires, maybe? It's going to grow tall and thin here, but it's a slow grower, so it's not going anywhere very fast. And then we do have some more lamb's ear here, and then everything else in here is just violets, wild violets that I let stay here because I like them in spring. I might clean this up a little bit. I do see that I have some volunteer echinaceas over here, and that's because last year I put the spent stems full of seed heads of the echinacea right here for the birds to eat, and so some of them dropped down here and actually planted themselves. So look at that, a little bit of volunteer echinacea action. So I'll probably transplant those somewhere. I might take out the violets. I might leave them. I don't know. I like them in the spring, but I just don't like them at this time of year. So this could look a little neater if I would care for it a little bit better. So I'm going to say that this project is done for today. I'll show you where I put those other plants in a different video when I get them into the ground somewhere else. Thank you so much for joining me. What do you think of this garden? Do you think I've made an improvement here? I hope you agree that this is going to be a better choice. I will see you in another video real soon, friends. I hope you're having a great day in your garden, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.